All right, everybody. Hope you're doing well. Welcome to another We've Read the Document subscriber live stream. I'm your host, John Brisson. Thank you for being a subscriber. Today, we continue discussing Cliff High on Seth Holehouse's Man in America podcast, where Seth Holehouse claims to be a Christian, but platforms powerful New Agers and doesn't push back at them at all, as well as he also pushes the Great Awakening narrative. And he, formerly worked for the Epoch Times, which is Falun Gong ran and owned. So let us continue.
Hear this, but are not able to change events such that they could back off of this because there's something on the other side that's driving them. So there are certain things that are popping out in reality that suggest that there are support in our factual reality for some kind of an event coming along this way. So it's subtle. You'd have to really understand the data and the way I'm looking at it, but some of these supporting more subtle effects are hugely long-term in terms of in the way in which they will manifest and the effects they will have.
Got a quick message for you. So folks, thank goodness inflation is going down. Thank you, Biden. But wait, if inflation is going down, then why are food prices going up, energy prices going up, and gas prices going up? Well, because they're lying to us. Imagine that. You see, right now, the real rate of inflation is closer to 25%, not the 5% the White House wants you to believe. You can see this with your own eyes and your own wallet. What this means is that if you had $100,000 in your savings account just 1 year ago, today, it's only worth about $75,000 in terms of your actual buying power.
Damn on the planet.
With zero taxes or penalties.
All right, excuse Cliff High's language. I can't censor this. This is live, so if he's cursing or using foul language, I apologize. I myself try not to curse as nearly as much as I once was previously beforehand. I still fall short sometimes, and I apologize for that. I repent for that. Let's continue.
So Kirk is who I use. He's who my family and my friends use. And honestly, he's someone I trust completely. And when it comes to your wealth, you need someone that you can trust. So,
and it's people are drifting away. Okay, so a bad sign for science when your scientists are not re-upping on their own, and you got to go out and try and keep recruiting them to come back into your operation. Whatever they were attempting to achieve, they failed with that. The fact that we're looking at such a large thing being shut down, and the first hints of the emotional problems that these guys are getting into in that shutdown process, because they can't just, everybody walk away and lock the door, right? They've got to decommission this thing. It's got to be a public kind of a deal. It's got to upend their whole grasp on physics and science, because they took science to this huge pinnacle and spent more on a single science project than anything ever in our history, and it failed. And it was a failure from the beginning. If you looked at things the appropriate way, you would see this. And in spite of them having hidden motivations, even all their hidden motivations failed. And that's caused them some real consternation. So we could be facile and see things at a surface level and say, oh, the deep state's attempt to create a portal for demons with the Large Hadron Collider for demons to come in and help them failed. Okay, and so there probably will be people that have that view, right? Like, I don't know, particular kind of mentician in people that would think that this was the case. But it's true that it failed. I don't know that they were attempting to bring in demons. I know that there were all these other ancillary project.
I don't know if they did it with the Large Hadron Collider, but I do believe that they attempted to do it and probably did do it, which is kind of Chris Knowles' theories with Lucifer's technologies, that L. Ron Hubbard and Jack Parsons were able to do so with their Babylon working ritual, which also kind of aligns itself with the transition between transistors to capacitors, right? So I don't know if they've been able to do that again. There hasn't been any really leaps in technology that I've seen. I could go back and forth of the elites have technology that's 50 to 100 years in the future that we really don't know about, or they don't. They don't have technology much greater than what we have seen. I don't know, go back and forth on that because it seems to be kind of a new age belief that they have this fancified technology, right? So I don't know. So again, when we talk about the Large Hadron Collider, why? Why are they doing it? Could it be used to open up portals for demons? Maybe. There's a lot of esoteric rituals that have gone on at the Large Hadron Collider. But again, it's just speculation. We really don't know. We really don't know.
For the Large Hadron Collider that were never mentioned except in the back corridors kind of thing. But I know that failure, as upsetting as it is to the mainstream scientists that are on the front side of it, is much more upsetting to the wackadoodle deep state scientists on the back side of things. And it's caused a huge problem with their grasp of reality, really, because it was things they were attempting to do, whatever they were. It basically, that failure came back and said, nope, you people are totally wrong in your view of how reality works. And that has really shocked them. So we're going to see all different kinds of things here. We've got major monetary collapses going on in the background that are significantly huge. So this time next year, will we be able to have an election in the United States? I do not believe we would be able to have any kind of an election that the Biden regime would be planning on. That is to say, Dominion machines,
Cliff is totally new age. I am a believing. Yes, he totally is a new ager. I bought into the Great Awakening. I'm not agreeing with Cliff's high total narrative. He brings forth, and something I've done, the previous stream that we've done is kind of like the unified theory of the Great Awakening. All these things falling into place for the false Great Awakening to happen. The transition from the current world order and the destruction of the Harlot to the beast system run by the Antichrist. And so, if the externalization of the hierarchy happens, if it happens in 2025 when Alice Bailey says it's supposed to happen, and Cliff High says in this interview it's supposed to happen, and Manly P. Hall said roughly 2025, 2026. Aleister Crowley said roughly 2025, 2026. God is ultimately sovereign. He could obviously, delay the end times judgment, right? It's what up to God whenever it happens. But I just, I think that we are entering into the tribulation. I don't think we're in it now, but I think we are entering into it. And so if that's the case, then the timeline would kind of line up with the rise of the Antichrist and the exposure of the Harlot Zionist current world order system, the Jesuit Zionist system. And then you have the transition to the beast system, because the beast devours the harlot. We're going to read Revelation today, actually. I'm going to pull it up in a little bit. And so, I've done shows on the plan. They're now calling it the Plan Plus Plus Plus. Michael Flynn's group is. They're talking about the plan again. We know that the plan has existed and has been propagated by Theosophists and New Agers like Alice Bailey or Blavatsky or Robert Mueller, one of the former head muckety-mucks of the United Nations. I've done 2 episodes on the plan, exposing that this has been a decade or centuries-long plan that the elites have had in place with Satan, which will lead the transition from the Great Reset to the Great Awakening in modern terms, or the Harlot to Beast system, which God is ultimately in control of all of this. But this is what's happening, I believe. And so, you're seeing it now. You're seeing it now. And I believe that these Theosophists and New Agers who wrote about this stuff and reveled in it. I think that it was demonically channeled. There's a similar demon, Rikorsky, right? That both Alice Bailey and David Icke has channeled. And so, I'm not saying that the demons 100% know what is going on for sure, because only God is fully knowledgeable. But I think they do have information, and they are trying to ultimately, they're going to try to attempt to take over the world with the Antichrist and with Satan. Because Satan, I do believe, and I go back and forth on this sometimes, but I do believe that Satan believes that he could actually win against God. Now you could argue that Satan is just being an agent to bring about the end times and the final judgment. Which you go with the Book of Job interpretation of Satan, primarily that he is just an agent of God, as wicked as he may be. But I think it's more complex than that. I think that obviously that Satan, can do what is commanded by God, but I think he also walks upon the earth as the father of lies, as a wolf to devour the sheep. He wants to ultimately, if he doesn't think that he can win against God, which was what the original rebellion was, right, in heaven, is to bring as many souls with him as he can to hell when he's cast into hell, to hurt God. And so, it's extremely complex, and I'm not sitting there saying that I understand it all. Only God does. And I'm thinking in my head, but Satan does want to hurt God. And one of the ways that he is able to do so, is keeping people from becoming born again, keeping people from believing and serving in him. And also stumbling, those who do serve God. Humbling hindering those and putting stumbling blocks in front of those who are born again, so that they are unable to properly serve God in the manner that God wants them to. And so, ultimately, I fear God. I don't fear Satan. But Satan still, does have some power and still wreaks havoc and destruction, and is evil, ultimately. And we know within God there is no darkness; there is only light. But I don't fear Satan, but I still understand that Satan is evil. He is demonic, and he hates God. So hopefully, a little bit of rambling there made sense to the best of my ability to explain my position. But I hope everybody doing well. God bless, Christine.
Any of that kind of stuff. I don't think any of that's going to happen because they won't be able to pay for it. I think Dominion itself will be bankrupt and no one working for them this time next year. Okay, so by the time we get into September next year, a lot of these very large firms will be 100% defunct because they rely basically on skimmed illegal money. So the Federal Reserve says they create $1 billion. Well, they actually farm out $1 billion without telling us to all their buddies. But the fact that they've been doing that for so long, and all of a sudden it comes to a stop, all of these firms that are counting on that money being farmed out to them, and as well as the fact that the money doesn't purchase what it should anyway, are in a world of hurt. And it's the bribery level that's going to be bringing down a lot of these very shaky institutions that basically rely on that hidden money to hoax up the books and get through year to year to year. And we're seeing it now. So a year from now, I don't think we'll have an ordinary election. I could see us having an election that was being supervised by some other authority, like the U.S. military, right? I could see us having an election that was being supervised in a way that didn't rely on commercial products like Dominion and all of that sort of thing. And I'm saying that because the monetary system is going to be having such huge amounts of trouble between now and then. And we have this coming up. whatever this release language event is, right? So if we postulated it was, a direct energy weapon attack on the Denver airport, right? There's reasons to do that, to get at the stuff that's underneath the airport. Maybe that would be the deep state doing it, one part of the deep state against another part. Maybe it would be anti-deep state people doing it. Who the hell knows, right? Because we're not being clued in as to who the participants are in this war.
So Cliff High is talking about some event happening around November that reaches the part of the point of no return, where the pendulum swinging back and forth between the Great Reset and the Great Awakening snaps off, and the Great Awakening finally happens, and the Great Awakening's fault, obviously, and people, become aware en masse of the ills of the current world order and how evil they are. Okay, and we are supposed to rejoice when the harlot falls, when God's judgment comes against the harlot. We're just not supposed to yoke up with the beast, with the Antichrist. Okay, we're not supposed to yoke up with the beast system. We're not supposed to take the mark of the beast. We're not supposed to say that, oh joy, the beast did this. Okay, no. It's God's judgment against Babylon, against the harlot, Mystery Babylon, which I believe is Jerusalem. Okay, I believe it's the current Zionist Jesuit world order. And so, it's we'll see. We'll see. Some people believe that. Some people believe Mystery Babylon is Rome. Some people believe Mystery Babylon is New York, or represents the United States of America. That's kind of more of a modern Council for National Policy, Tim LaHaye dispensationalist belief. I believe it's between Rome and Jerusalem, and I think it's Jerusalem. I agree with Chris White. I believe Mystery Babylon is Jerusalem. And so, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
But it will be something on that order where people will be able to tune in on the internet, probably even on regular TV, and see particle beam weapons coming down, beating the absolute crap out of the Denver airport until it's just a smoking hole in the ground. It'll be that's what it's going to take to get these kind of numbers. And at that level, what's our response as a nation, and so on and so on. Now, I've got data sets that say that this coincidental to this, all right, not as a direct outgrowth and not as a supporting feature, but coincidental to this, sometime in the future here, like maybe 2 months or so, there's going to be a reaction within the generations that are in school now. And I got that data sets before I did any of my numeric analyses. But the data sets were basically saying that the sort of like the middle school into high school level kids are going to get savvy to the war, and a lot of them are going to get an attitude, okay? And this attitude is going to be hardened by the fact that there are a lot of them with the same attitude. And they're going to start talking to their parents about the war. Their parents are going to start getting freaked out and starting to react because, maybe the kid's right. And also, the kid's attitude is going to come back to bite the Biden regime, in the sense that we're going to have, according to my data sets, we're going to have full-on absolute counter-insurrection in large school systems being run by the kids themselves. Okay, so the kids are going to be tired of all this queer the generation crap, and there will be a hard line there. Those people that have adopted the queer the generation crap from the deep state, those kids are going to be, a lot of them are going to be pulled back by the sheer size of the anti-deep state group, and these kids are going to be savvy to who they're fighting.
So we have Great Reset transition to the Great Awakening, with the Great Awakening of the children occurring, like it would generally with any revolution, right? We just have Great Awakening. And look, I'm not excusing the ills of the Great Reset and the falling away from God that is rapidly happening, which might be the great apostasy, and the destruction of biblical values that is occurring widespread across the world right now. And the Great Reset, kind of like a current Zionist Jesuit Freemason, if you want to have the Freemason cabal that exists right now, with pushing destruction of family values through Hollywood or the music industry, or video games or media. Yeah, I mean that it definitely exists. That is for sure, and it's an issue. But it is one of Satan's traps to get us. I think it's a primary issue of fighting the culture war, and instead of preaching the gospels and winning souls for the Lord, which people becoming born again ultimately changes them. Yeah, that's my issue with Christian nationalism and nominal Christianity, is you can ban all these things, which is what's going to happen somewhat, I think, in the Great Awakening, or it'll be a free for all, anything goes, right? But well, I guess we'll see. It depends on different positions around the world of whether it's more libertine or not. Libertine or kind of Kantian Christian nationalism, okay? Just like certain sections of the world, it's libertinism, and certain sections of the world, it's Kantian Christian nationalism. I don't know. We'll see. So I could see there'd be sections, or it could go back and forth. It could go one way and then go another. I'm not set in stone of how the beast system is going to look with being anti-biblical values and perversion abounding, okay? Because this perversion's abounding right now. But I don't know the answer to that, or how it is going to go, per se. But I think it's going to happen. And so I'm not saying that we don't call out sin, okay? I don't think I am not saying that. We shouldn't yoke ourselves up with the culture war, which is obviously Satan with red skin and pitchfork and cloven hooves. It's the obvious Satan. It's the overt Satan of how it's being pushed on the world, right? And then you have the Great Awakening side with more of an occultic angel of light Satan, quote unquote, fighting against it. It's Satan fighting Satan, and standing against the blatant evil of the but it's like your enemy is telling you to join them in the culture war, but they're still your enemy, which is the Great Awakening side. It's like the mass sinner, Tucker Carlson, who practices the Kabbalah, who is not a born again Christian, or even going, I believe, is going to come to Christianity, though we should pray for him. He's our warrior on the culture war, right? On the right, conservatism. They look to Tucker Carlson, and he's out there, fighting against sinful behavior on the front of the culture war. But Tucker Carlson himself, is I've done 12 episodes exposing him. I'm not going to really discuss it here because I will get a strike on YouTube. But Tucker is definitely not our guy. Definitely a wolf in sheep's clothing. Definitely represents the false light of the false angel light of Satan. And though some Christian conservatives will think that he is fighting the culture war with upstanding values, he is really not. He is sinful and debauched, and we should pray for him. Okay, and so you can go watch the exposés that I've done on Tucker Carlson to show that to be the case. So Satan wants you to be outraged. Satan wants you to hate the sinful, confused people who have bought in to the Great Reset, side, libertine side of the culture war. Satan wants you to hate these people, but instead we should take pity on them and preach the gospel to them, because, as Jude says, their garments are polluted by the flesh. And so that's definitely what is going on right now. Satan wants you full of anger and hate and outrage, and I'm not excusing what's happening right now. Okay, don't say John's excusing Hollywood. John's excusing the LGBTQ plus agenda. I'm not. The Bible and God speaks out against these things. But Satan wants you in a state of hate and anger and outrage, so that it hinders you, because we're supposed to pray for our enemies, right? It hinders you spreading the gospel to these people. It hinders you to pray for them, that they do become saved, that God shows them grace, that they come out of the arrogancy or pride or delusions or the sin that they're committing. It hinders you from doing that. And ultimately, that's one of the ways that Satan puts stumbling blocks in front of Christians. It's very sad. It's very, very sad. It's what's one of the things that's happening right now. And I think John from B511 Ministries goes a little too far when he's like, you shouldn't be preaching about the LGBTQT plus agenda right now. Because that baits people into the culture war and the dichotomy between the Great Reset and the Great Awakening, and I disagree with that. We're supposed to call out sin generally. We're not supposed to judge people outside of the church, outside of the born again believers, but we are supposed to call out sin. And so I disagree with John on that. He'll say that if a preacher has a sermon about why homosexuality is a sin, or why transgenderism is sinful, that they should not do so because they're playing into the beast system, and I necessarily don't think that's true. Now, if you have a preacher that's extremely hateful towards LGBTQT plus community, almost like you could say Steven Anderson, for example, then yeah, I could see that he could be whether he realizes it or not, playing into the division that Satan wants to cause, and fueling the culture war. That I can understand. That is something that I can understand. But if you have a preacher who's just saying it's sinful, and properly exegeting about why homosexuality or transgenderism, why those are sinful, without hate, obviously, anybody who is homosexual, for example, can become born again, and that might not necessarily, take away their homosexual desires, but they shouldn't practice homosexual acts, which are sinful. And there are homosexuals, as Paul has said, formerly such as yourself, that do become born again. Okay. And so, if someone is hateful about it, all it does is cause division. All it does is, put stumbling blocks in front of the, LGBTQ, BT plus community. It makes it hard to do any evangelistic outreach towards them. The more that we, play and get divisive in the culture war. So, there it's just something that it's a fine line. It's a fine line. And I'm not saying up here that I always do it perfectly, that I don't get mad reading things, on Twitter or people's comments, that I don't get sucked up into the culture war, myself. But I'm only human. But I do my best to try not to so anymore. And we have to do our best to preach the gospel. We have to do our best to live Christ-like lives the best that we can. And there are good examples. I think Mike Winger is a good example of someone who preaches out against the sin of the LGBTQ, BT plus agenda, but doesn't do it from a hateful, angry perspective, where I think Steven Anderson does. And so it's something interesting that we have to talk about. Yeah, you want to come on, Aaron? Give me about 15 more minutes to play the rest of this, and I'll start a new stream, and I'll bring you in, okay?
Well, you'll start hearing the kids talk about the KM, the Khazarian Mafia. And they'll be able to differentiate the Khazarian Mafia. They'll be able to tell you the history. They'll be able to point you to the Veterans Today articles that will detail anything you want to know about them, yada, 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 right? And so this is going to start a ground up kind of a thing that's going to cause problems both with the parents as they try and react, but also more so with the school administrators. Because in the data sets, it's saying a lot of these kids are just going to say, go into the classroom, and then every time the teacher says anything, they're going to catcall, they're going to disrespect, they're going to throw out the truth, they're going to get up and cause problems, just basically not able to take the bullshit anymore. And so you'll see teachers running out of the classroom in tears, teachers totally freaking out because their socialism nonsense doesn't fly. They don't know why. And this will be, that will be a large part of it. The data set said that the bewilderment, the puzzlement on the part of the teachers and the administrators last for some months. A lot of them crashing and burning in that process, in the sense that the data shows teachers resigning, administrators quitting, and that...
Now, Cliff might be getting this data, again, from channeling demons, okay? Or at least if he's getting it from Google algorithm bots, then somewhere it does come from demonic AI. It analyzing demonic AI, okay? So somewhere along the line, there's demons involved, all right? But, yeah, I think eventually something like this will happen. I think eventually when we have the final pendulum swing from the Great Reset to the Great Awakening, I do think, as most revolutions, it does usually start with kids, the children. If this is the final one, it would likely start with them. I wouldn't see why not. And I would see something like teachers resigning and some of them, quote unquote, waking up as well too, right? And so, yeah, I mean, I don't think Cliff's wrong here. But he's making it say it's a good thing, where, are these kids going to wake up to the ultimate truth that matters is, God the Father and our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. That's really what matters. And, I hope that, if something like that happens, that people will evangelize, to the children the best they can. I mean, that's why I'm glad that I teach at a Christian school, because I'm able to do so. And I hope God has called me to do so, because, I want, the children that I teach, I want them to be saved. I want them to glorify God. I want them to live good Christian lives and go to heaven. And sadly, not every kid that goes to that school is saved, but ultimately, is what I would hope, that they are able to come to the truth, and the only truth that matters. And so, if something like this does happen, we need to be out there saying, look, yes, a lot of these conspiracy theories are true, but the ultimate truth is Jesus.
Sort of basically have a rebellion in very large school districts, to where the data would have it be that these school districts were more or less being operated by and under the control of the students themselves, not so much their parents even. It's just really strange, Guy. But that part right there takes us into 2024. So that's my kind of lead into 2024 in terms of the level of disruption we're going to be having here. Now, whatever it is that we get into here, I think that happens before the end of the year, before the end of this year. It may happen further into the new year, but it just seems that the building tension levels are dropping too rapidly around in November to be able to sustain anything into the new year. So it looks like they get.
So Cliff High believes that this will happen between November or at the latest the beginning of next year. I don't know. Maybe the transition of the Great Reset to the Great Awakening, when the Great Falling Away reaches its crescendo, maybe the Great Deception. I don't know. I think it's going to happen within the next few years. I just don't know if reaches its crescendo like he is saying in November. I don't know if it reaches crescendo in the beginning of the new year, but I think it will happen. It definitely will happen. Very within the few years, I believe, because there's been so it's almost like they've been sloppy on purpose. And you have people that normally would not talk about conspiracy theories are now believing them and accepting them, right? And we're told in conspiracy culture that this is a glorious day when this happens. But as Christians, we know that, if the Great Reset to Great Awakening theory is truthful and plays into the tribulation, that it is evil because they don't wake up to the only truth that matters, which is God the Father, Jesus Christ, and the Holy Spirit. They wake up to a false reality of the Antichrist, and they yoke with the Antichrist, thinking the Antichrist is saving humanity. And so, I don't know when it's going to happen. I think it's going to happen in a few years. I could be wrong, but it does seem like that is the case.
Swamped at some point near the end of November. As I say, it could maybe take into January. It's just it's difficult to estimate, but that alone is going to be a reshaping of the social order at a level that the political powers had not anticipated at all. That's going to strike them right out of the blue. It's like what what's going on over there? It's going to be really interesting. I think it's going to be really cool.
Gosh, so this is so interesting because there's so many layers to this, but while a lot of people are looking to what's happening with DC or politics, or they're getting caught up in that level of the battle, and they've now come to this conclusion that maybe they're saying the left is has been infiltrated and taken over by the communists, and they're trying to destroy America, which is different than just kind of left versus right. And I disagree with your policies, but it's like the next. So there's been this mass awakening towards that level. Okay, the media is fake news. Big pharma is out, to harm us. There's been that level of awakening, but what you're seeing is that the next level and the most significant awakening for
which will be when the pendulum swings and it breaks off the hinges. And again, Seth claims to be a Christian, but he's on board with the Great Awakening.
Masses is to realize that there is a small group of evil psychopaths that are trying to control and kill the entire world. Things that you and I believe that we've kind of understood and awakened to, that when that realization hits the masses, that becomes the trigger point, that becomes the tipping point in which all of their systems start to fundamentally collapse. Because once you see things from that perspective, you see through the schools, you see through the media, through Hollywood in a way that you didn't before. And you will no longer go along with it because you know what's ultimate.
And it's the destruction of the 7 mountains, right? It's very interesting the way that they discuss. It's almost like they talk about destruction of the 7 mountains mandate, right? The controlling of the church, controlling the 7 mountains. And it's interesting because you're kind of seeing that occurring, but ultimately it's the Antichrist taking control, the destruction of the current world order to the new world order. Okay. And so, look, I'm not saying that government's not corrupt and finance isn't corrupt and media is not corrupt. Okay. And various, religious structures, even within Christendom, aren't corrupt. I'm not saying that at all, but the destruction of these things and the conquering of these things, what is called in the 7 Mountains Mandate, or which is echoed in postmillennialism. It's interesting how it lines up with the same thing that the Great Awakening. There's not much difference between Barbara Marx Hubbard and what she states, or Alice Bailey and what she states, and the 7 Mountains Mandate and Dominionism. There's just not. There's just really not.
Ultimately there. So that's what you're seeing as a gigantic, it's almost as if like 2024 from here, what you're saying is that 2024 is when the Great Awakening hits the mainstream and the entire structure that the deep state has of this world is shaken to the core.
I'd say 2024, over the process of 2024, the Great Awakening eats the deep state. It eats fake news, and we digest it the rest of that year and into 2025, and then we shit it out.
And I'm going to end with that because we're going to read some scripture. Very interesting language, Cliff High. Extremely interesting language. So you have Revelation 17, and there came one of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, I will shew unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. So he carried me in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon scarlet-colored beasts, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a gold cup in her hand full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. And upon her forehead was the name written, Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. And I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints and the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I wondered with the great admiration. So remember, the woman, Mystery Babylon, drunk with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus, okay, and drunk with the blood of the saints, okay. And the angel said unto me, Wherefore thou marvel? I will tell thee the mystery of the woman, and of the beast that carrieth her, which has 7 heads and 10 horns. The beast that thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit, and go into perdition, and they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, where they behold the beast that was and is not, and yet is. And here is the mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth. And there are 7 kings, 5 are fallen, and 1 is, and the other is not yet to come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space. And the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th, and is the 7th, and goes into perdition. The 10 horns who saweth are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as the kings 1 hour with the beast. These have one mind, and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. They shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them. For he is the Lord of lords and the King of kings. And they that are with him are called the chosen and faithful. And he satteth unto me the waters which thou sawest, with the horse sitteth, and people and multitudes and nations and tongues. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, there shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh, and burn her with fire. For God hath put in their hearts to fulfill his will, and to agree and give their kingdom unto the beast, until the words of God shall be fulfilled. And the woman that saweth is that great city, which reigneth over the kings of the earth. Now, I believe that's Jerusalem, okay? And after the things I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. For all the nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. And I heard another voice from heaven, saying, Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partaker of her sins, and ye not receive not of her plagues. For her sins have reached into heaven, and God hath remembered her iniquities. Reward her even as she rewarded you, and double unto her double according to her works, and the cup which she hath filled to her double. How much she had glorified herself and lived deliciously, so much torment and sorrow give her. For she saith in her heart, I sit a queen, and I am no widow, and shall see no sorrow. And therefore shall our plagues come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and shall be utterly burned with fire, for strong is the Lord God who judgeth her. The kings of the earth who have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her shall bewail her and lament for her when they see the smoke of her burning, saying afar for the fear of torment, saying, Alas, the great city Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour thy judgment has come. And as the merchants of the earth weep and mourn over her, for no man buyeth their merchandise any more. Merchandise of gold and silver, precious stones, and of pearls and fine linen, and purple and silk, and scarlet and thyme wood, and the manner of vessels of ivory, and all the manner of vessels of most precious wood, and the brass, iron, and marble, and cinnamon, and odors, and ointments, and frankincense, and wine, and oil, and fine flour, and wheat, and beasts, and sheep, and horses, and chariots, and slaves, and the souls of men. Ultimately, the souls of men. It's very interesting. The trading of the souls of men. And the fruit that the soul lusted after are departed from thee, and all things which are dainty and goodly are departed from thee, and thou shalt find them no more at all. The merchants of these things which are made rich by her shall stand afar off for torment, weeping, and wailing, and saying, Alas, alas, that great city that was clothed in fine linen, and purple and scarlet, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls. For when our so great riches is come to naught, and every shipmaster and all the company and ships and sailors, and as many as by trade by sea stood far off, and cried when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, What great city is it like unto the city? And it cast dust on their hands, and cried, weeping and wailing, saying, Alas, alas, the great city wherein we're all made rich, all that had ships in the sea by reasons of her costliness. For in 1 hour she is made desolate. Rejoice over her, thou heaven, and ye holy apostles and prophets, for God hath avenged you on her. So we're supposed to rejoice when Babylon falls. But we're not supposed to yoke up with the beast and the Antichrist, because it wasn't the Antichrist that did it. It was God's judgment ultimately coming upon Babylon the Great, coming upon the harlot. Ultimately, it was God's judgment, because vengeance is mine, the saith the Lord. Okay. And a mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone and cast it into the sea, saying, Thus with the violence shall the great city Babylon be thrown down, and shall be found no more at all. The voice of harpers and musicians and of pipers and trumpeters shall be heard no more at all in thee, and no craftsman or whatever craft he be shall be found any more in thee, and the sound of the millstone shall be heard no more at all in thee. And the light of the candle shall shine no more at all in thee, and the voice of the bridegroom and the bride shall be heard no more at all in thee. That's very interesting. For thy merchants were the great men of the earth, for by thy sorceries were all nations deceived. And in her was found the blood of the prophets and of the saints, and all that were slain upon the earth. Okay. That is it for today. I'm going to bring my friend Aaron Foxman on from Underground Publishing. We're going to have a discussion real quick. And me and S90 are going to do a show soon on a series of books by Robert Anton Wilson called the Schrodinger's Cat Trilogy. Okay, so definitely be on the lookout for this one. It's going to be a very interesting show. It was 3 books written by World Future Society member Robert Anton Wilson, who Eve Hubbard, which is Barbara Marx Hubbard, is the alternate president of an alternative universe. Okay, so it's going to be very interesting. Very interesting. Because it lays out Barbara Marx Hubbard and the plan for the coming beast system. Okay, it's extremely interesting book series. All right, where Eve Hubbard, or Barbara Marx Hubbard, is the president of the United States of America, and you can see I don't do esoteric symbology in this book, but the black and white checkerboard, Schrodinger's cat is a beast with the paw on the world. Okay, is enough right there. And let's just forget Schrodinger. Very instrumental in the pushing of quantum mechanics, was a pedophile. He had a disgusting predilection for underage Irish girls. That's come out over the past few years. Okay, so me and S90 will be covering the Schrodinger Cats trilogy and Robert Anton Wilson, who also wrote the Illuminatus trilogy, where the Illuminati card game comes from, that was made by Steve Jackson. And so be on the lookout for that. God bless everybody who's out there. I put a pinned donation link in the chat, so if you could donate, much appreciated. I'm trying to raise up funds I almost have enough to pay for my van, getting the radiator repaired. I've had more calamity as far as repair bills this year that I've ever had in my life hit me all at once. But God has seen me through every time. And it's, it's probably because of both. Everybody's going through the trials and tribulations as far as believers are concerned, with the weight of the world going on. And that, I've been more vocal and walked more with the Lord this past year. So maybe, Satan, enemy, is coming against me too as well. And keep, Jeremy Stone in your prayers, my co-host, by their fruits. Keep him and his family in your prayers as well. Take care, everybody. God bless.